Does this ever happen to you? Do you feel like you're being thrown around when you're trying to drive hard? You're trying to steer precisely, but you're also trying to brace yourself against the steering wheel while you're trying to remember just where the pedals actually are. If only there was some cool way to lock your body in the perfect driving position so that you could just focus on clipping apexes and shaving seconds. If only. Well, today we're going to be installing a set of seats and harnesses in the Miata, and along the way we'll show you what to look out for if you're trying to do a set of seats and harnesses in your car. I'm Zach and this is Money Pit. Let's take a seat. Now, we've done a lot of stuff to the Miata to keep it planted to the ground, but we really haven't done anything to keep me planted to the Miata. Usually I say seats are one of the first things you should do to a car because of how much of an improvement they make for the whole driving experience. But today we're going to be installing a set of OMP's racing seats and harnesses. Even with how impressed I honestly am with the stock Miata seats, I've got a sneaking suspicion these are going to blow them right out of the water. But I guess we're just gonna have to install them to find out if they're actually worth it. So today, along the way, we're gonna be talking about how to choose a set of seats for yourself, how to size them to yourself, how to install them, how to choose harnesses, how to install those. We're gonna be talking about a lot of seats and harnesses stuff today, so I'm gonna try not to forget anything. But the first thing that we need to do is get those old seats out of the Miata. So why do you even want to install a set of racing seats in your car anyway? Well, first, to me, in my opinion, the biggest thing is the support that they give you. When you're driving hard and hitting corners, you know what they say, a body in motion tends to stay in motion, and your body wants to go in a straight line when you're cornering. So, stock seats don't really hold you in place very well. They're usually pretty flat and they don't give you much side support. But a good set of racing seats, that'll lock your whole thing in so well that you can just focus on driving. And that is important. First off, the stock seat is a reclining seat. It's got a steel frame in there, where this is a fixed back with a resin frame. So being a fixed back and made the way it's made allows this thing to be FIA certified, so it can be raced with in sanctioned race events, where this cannot. On the stock seat, you can see that the butt area is pretty dang flat. You just basically sit on it. Whereas the racing seat, this OMP, it's like a big crater that you climb down into and then it holds you tightly. It gives you support on both sides of your thighs and support up here for your shoulders and the whole way down your torso. You're supported from all that side to side motion you experience when you're cornering. So that's the whole point of this thing. That's what keeps you locked in is, these big sidewalls. You basically just climb down into this thing and you're trapped. In a good way. So you might think that we're ready to slam these seats into the Miata, but it's gonna take a few steps to get there. We've got to figure out our side mounts and our floor mounts, figure out where to position the seat. There's a lot to do. But first, let's talk about how you even choose a seat and choose a seat that fits you. I bought these seats sight unseen and they fit me great. So how did I do that? Well, most, if not all, seat manufacturers have seat measurements available generally online, so you can take some measurements of your body and then compare them to the measurements of the seat. It's often in millimeters, so get your millimeter tape measure out and just do some kind of rudimentary measurements and you'll be able to tell if the overall dimensions of the seat will fit in the space you're trying to put them. The other thing you have to keep in mind is where the harness pass-throughs land on your body. Now the lower ones are usually just always going to be good, but the upper ones matter and it depends on how tall you are for how they fit you. One of the easiest way to get a set that will probably fit you is to get a set of seats with these big holes because they fit a wide range of heights. You can see I'm sort of at the upper end of that range, but you want the seat belts to be able to pass straight through the seats and straight onto the top of your shoulders with no real angle. Now, if you're not a real race car driver, you might think you don't need an FIA certified seat, and that is technically true, but I would still recommend getting one because it's safety equipment after all, and it is literally holding your life. After that, it's just personal preference. Pick what you like. So now that we've got our seats picked out, let's figure out how we put them in the car. First thing we're gonna need is a set of side mounts. So this is a side mount, and basically its job is to mount to the seat and then figure out how to mount it to the floor or the lower bracket or your slider or whatever you have beyond this. We'll get there. So you can see there are a lot of hole options, and this basically lets you determine the angle of your seat, whether or not it's upright or leaned back or what have you, and then some options on the lower side of things. So these go between the seat and what we'll talk about next, your floor mount. This is a floor mount, and it's made specifically for the Miata. The holes on it line up with the holes for the seat and the floor, which is great. The problem is that where that would position the seat is basically right under the steering wheel. The Miata is pretty small and I usually have the seat all the way back. So to make this floor mount work with these side mounts, I would basically have to install the side mounts hanging way off the back of these floor mounts, and it just doesn't seem very sturdy. So to get the optimal driving position, I'm gonna put this thing on sliders so we can move the driving position. I'm gonna reuse the stock sliders with these side mounts and not use these floor mounts. Okay, so now we've got the slider off the seat and mounted into the car, so we know this is the way the slider wants to be mounted. Now I can set our side mounts and our seat on top and mark where I need to drill my hole into the side mounts. It appears that we've got 2 holes that'll work. Sweet. So we got to put a bolt in there, sandwich that together, and then we'll make holes at the back ends of the side mounts for that hole to mount up to. All right, so in trying to mock up these sliders to get our holes drilled, I found that this spring, where the spring's retained for the slider mechanism itself, runs into our side mounts right about there. So I'm gonna have to cut just a little notch to clear that part of the spring. Should be easy. That should be plenty of room for our little spring to sit. Now we got some bare metal, so I'm gonna paint that up. We've got the fronts of our sliders bolted to the side mounts, and now we're just trying to figure out where to put the holes in the back of the side mounts to mount the back of the sliders. Since we know the fronts are in the spot that they should be and this fits into the car, I'm basically going to measure up the side of the side mount and make sure that this measurement from the edge of the side mount to the edge of the slider is the same measurement all the way up. I'll do that on both sides so everything's square, and then I'll measure the gap between my holes, double check with the car to make sure everything looks right. Then I'll mark my holes, cut them, and install the seat. Well, I'm basically the second from the most upright setting. So the seat's gonna be pretty upright, but that's what I want. It fits the best in the car that way, and should be the safest that way as well. I'll be putting some low strength thread locker just to make sure nothing vibrates apart. I would like my seat to stay where I put it. All right, our seats are all done and ready to go in the car, but before we can put them in, we gotta put the lower mounting points for our new harnesses in place. Should be pretty quick and easy, and then we can put the seats in for hopefully the last time, then get these done. So the harnesses come with these eyelets, and these take the place of the factory seat belt mounting locations for the buckle and the lower mounting point here. So we're gonna put some blue on these bad mamma jammas, and then she'll thread right in. Stock belt out of here so we can use its mounting point for our new eyelets. Hey, I'm sitting in an OMP seat in the Miata, and it's got 4 bolts in the floor. Doesn't have any padding in it, but it's a step in the right direction. We're making progress. So that's one seat officially in. Now we gotta do the other. Pretty dang easy. Ah, dang, hit the door bar. Oh, crap. I guess that's gonna happen. Got to do a little bit of persuading. But so that I don't have to take the carpet out and I can just smash the carpet, I put a glove on my hammer. It's not bad. It's really not much. I just want to give this lower corner of the seat a little more room. All right, that's 2 seats in a Miata. Now we just got to do those belts. So we've got these 2-inch 4-point harnesses from OMP, and they should be a breeze to install. First, I'm just gonna run the shoulder belts back to the rear. We'll deal with them later. Got the lap belt, and then this little clip just goes through the side here, and then this will go down onto the eyelet we put down there. And bada bing, bada boom. That one is done. Now let's do the same over here. Bring this through the side. All right, so now the lap belts are in. Now we need to do the shoulders. All right, so this is similar to strapping on a helmet, if you know what I'm talking about. We're just using a link like this, and this is gonna be what holds our seatbelt in place. Now the first thing you wanna consider is how long you want your shoulder belts to be. You want them to be snug on you, but in the case of this car where we have sliders and shorter people might be driving it, I'm gonna leave a little extra adjustment room just in case somebody short starts driving. So this is about where I want the seats to hang. Our link is gonna end up on this side. So over, under, and then we got one more to cram through just to send it backwards. All right, same thing over here. Just gonna click these things into these things. You know what I'm talking about. So they give you options where you could add some anchor points for these threaded eyelets to the rear if you don't have a roll bar, or if your situation's unique. And it's the same thing for 5-point and 6-point harnesses, where you'll basically have to weld a receptacle for an anchor to the floor in front of your seat, rather. Anytime you hear a number and then point, that's how many points of attachment it has to the car. So you can see we've got 1, 2, and then 3, 4 down in those eyelets. So these are 4-point harnesses. 5 points are similar, and then they connect to the floor through the front of the seat. Why would you potentially go with a 5 or 6 point over a 4-point? Well, it's an added level of safety. You get into a front end collision and your body wants to go forward. As your body goes forward, it pulls on your shoulder straps, which pulls up on your lap belt. So when your lap belt pulls up, it goes over your hips and into your soft bits, and that is not where you want it. So if you're gonna run a 4-point, it's absolutely critical that you make sure your belts are set up right, and that's taking into account that your seats fit you and that the angle of your shoulder belts back to the harness bar or your roll bar or whatever you've got your belts attached to is relatively straight, no more than a 20-degree tilt down. But the truth is that as long as my belt is set up right, I'm not personally too concerned about submarining. My biggest concern is getting into a wreck and my body staying dead still and my head just whipping and rolling down the track. So I was proactive. I want to keep my head on my body, so I did something about it. Let me show you. It's pretty sweet. I got a Hans device. Listen, we're taking this thing to the track soon, and I want to be pretty safe when I do it. The idea is that without this device, if I were to get in an accident, my head can just break my neck right off. So the point of the Hans device is to stop that from happening. It attaches your helmet to basically your rib cage kind of, and limits the range of motion that your head has no matter what. So this thing should keep my head on my body, this thing should keep my head in one piece, and that thing should keep the rest of me as good as I am now. Let's finish up those final adjustments, and that should do it. Am I a submarine? I hope not. Ooh, they're in and they feel great. I am pumped. But the fact is that the car kind of took a turn towards being more of a track car today. But that's okay, because we're going to the track. We're going to Big Willow next week in the Miata. I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun. We're taking the Miata, we're taking the E36, we're taking Strone's 2 Series. We're even gonna try to take my RV, not to go on the track, but just, to hang out in. I can't wait. I gotta tell you, it's gonna be so much fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Instagram at Zach Job, follow Donut at Donut Media, and I'll see you guys at the track.